So a few days ago, I popped in a movie that I had previously seen and thoroughly enjoyed, The King's Speech. It centers around King George VI as he attempts to overcome the greatest obstacle of his life, his stammer. Now look, on paper it sounds kinda silly, and to the more seasoned, cynical movie lover, it might make your eyes roll that it took home so many Oscars the year that it came out, including Best Picture. Yes, it's another British story with classically trained British actors. Yes, it's a period piece with expensive-looking art direction. And yes, it pretty much fits the bill for anything that's ever gotten the label of Oscar bait. But if you're willing to get past all that, you'll find a genuinely great movie. It's a beautifully shot, sharply written, well-acted tribute to the art of communication, and the power it has in times of both triumph and desperation. It demonstrates how crippling something like a speech impediment can be to somebody whose role in the world, one where countless people are counting on them, depends on how well they can deliver a written piece. Through cringeworthy failure and humbling victories, while backed by a good-hearted, no-nonsense therapist, the protagonist learns to believe in his own capabilities. And along the way, so does the audience. But we're not here to talk about that. No. As fun as it would be for me to sing the praise of one of my favorite movies in recent memory, I think there's something here that's just a little bit more worth addressing. No, what I want to talk about is this. Because this bugs me. Like a lot. Now I know what you're thinking. What's the big deal? So it's rated R. It's probably got stuff in there kids shouldn't be watching anyway, and you're what, like 17 years old? It doesn't even affect you anymore. Quit worrying about it. First off, 22, thanks. But secondly, and more importantly, to say that kids shouldn't watch The King's Speech just based off of the rating alone is assuming a lot. Sure, the rating system is there for a reason. It gives parents or guardians a heads up on whether anything too provocative for young children will be in the movie. That said, the MPAA, for all its apparent power and prestige, for all the authority we feel from its red band movie trailers and legit-looking markings, it's a joke. It's a goddamn joke. Now, I'm not going to harp on this part too much, as there's plenty of articles on this topic that can be found online, as well as a great documentary called This Film Is Not Yet Rated, which I think anyone who likes movies should watch. But the way movies get rated, at least here in the States, is so scattershot, so easily influenced by subjective definitions of decency, that it's nearly impossible to have a consistent way of measuring a film's capability with kids. When looking at the rating of a movie, it's common for marks over PG to pile on their reasons. It's like the 40 minutes of side effects they attach to a miracle drug. Sensuality, sexuality, crude and sexual humor, smoking, brief smoking, teen drinking, language, strong language, mild language, brief strong language, thematic elements, whatever the hell those are. Peril, mild peril, violence, mild violence, strong violence, pervasive action violence, strong brutal violence, strong bloody violence throughout, non-stop ninja action, and so on. Sheesh. Don't forget the epilepsy warnings and telling women not to take it with birth control. So with all these artistic vices in mind, what sins did King's Speech commit to get the hardest rating one can get without lesbian sex scenes? Let's find out. Language. Sorry, to be more specific, some language. Not strong language or brief strong language, or just brief language, or just language, you know, one word language. Some language. Be right back. Alright, in the movie, a recurring bit is that the main character must ease the mental passage between thought and speech. An exercise that allows him to do this, as pointed out by his therapist, is to let him spew whatever feisty thoughts are seated within his subconscious. And some of these words, of course, are a little NSFW, if you will.
Shit.
Yes.
Shit!
Defecation flows trippingly from the tongue.
Because I'm angry!
The rest of the movie has some milder words that'll only really strike home if you live in the UK.
You don't stammer when you swear.
No, bugger off.
Is that the best you can do?
Bloody bugger to you, you beastly bastard.
It's worth noting, though, that their rating of the film is equivalent to our system's PG-13. Now, this makes sense when you consider how the UK is, for the most part, more lenient with things like language and nudity, while they're much more restrictive when it comes to violence. I'm getting a little off track here, but the differences in cultural priorities is really fascinating to me. Back to my point though, the therapy in King's Speech escalates to this stronger level of profanity only twice in the film's runtime of 2 hours, neither of which amounts to more than a minute. So, to summarize what the MPAA seems to be telling us with their rating of The King's Speech, a movie that has clever writing, wonderful performances, and outstanding technical craftsmanship. A movie that encourages you to work through your anxieties, focuses on a friendship transcending class and bloodlines, and encapsulates the importance of being a good speaker. A movie that I can personally confirm inspires people to get into the field of speech pathology to help those who struggle to talk on a day-to-day basis, is given the same rating as movies where stupid teens get wasted while up to their knees in drugs and poontang, where young, terrified men get blown to spaghetti on the beaches of Normandy, and Jesus Christ himself gets beaten and whipped to the point of his skin falling off before getting nailed to a piece of wood. All because of less than 2 minutes where Colin Firth prances around a room saying the F word? Meanwhile, when you look at the stuff that's been deemed totally okay for your kids by the almighty dollar, you've got a loud mess of color and noise that I can only describe as a monster and crushed up candy cocktail for your eyeballs. Non-stop stimulation that desensitizes kids to the point where if you give them something with nuance or well-paced storytelling, they get bored and roll around on the floor like a bunch of frothing junkies. Toy Story, Up, Surf's Up, movies that slow down and flesh out their characters. Screw that noise, Dad. Give me bright colors. Give me running around and yelling that I'll surely replicate later and drive both you and Mom insane. Give me those 4 actual financially successful movies where that guy screams, Alvin, and a bunch of singing chipmunks. But past that, smacking that transitional rating that gets studios even more money, you've got crap like Transformers sequels, where stupid parents get stoned and run around on a college campus, a robot voiced by SpongeBob humps Megan Fox's leg, and a mini-boss character has wrecking balls for balls!
I am directly below. Enemy scrotum.
Not to mention that these robots literally rip each other apart, shouting bloodthirsty war cries and catchphrases before they try to blow each other to smithereens.
We will kill them all. This is going to hurt. I hereby discharge you from duty. I'll kill you!
Billions of dollars were made by these movies, and don't you dare try to tell me that a good chunk of those tickets weren't for kids! But it's all okay. It's just a Hasbro toy after all. 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 It's just a Hasbro toy after all.
It's just a Hasbro toy after all. It's just a Hasbro toy after all.
Am I missing something here? Like, could any of you watching look me dead in the eye and tell me we have a consistent and balanced way of determining what's all right for our kids? You know, growing up, back when I was younger, I was pretty hesitant to talk about this kind of stuff. Just, namely because I don't have kids. I'm not a parent. How could my opinion be valid if I've never had to live my life in a way that essentially has to guarantee the survival and growth of a tiny person? I don't have that kind of insight. Who cares what I think? Right? Now, though, having watched hundreds of movies, looked at the way those films affect individuals of all ages, and having read a substantial amount of studies of what may or may not be the cause of certain problems in society, when met with the idea of expressing my opinion on this, only to be met with some irate parent getting all up in my grill saying, "You don't know. Don't act like you know anything, young man. You don't have kids. You don't know what it's like. No one cares what you think." My immediate response is, "You're right. You're absolutely right. I am not a parent." Which, in a roundabout sort of way, means I'm not biased. At least, not in a way that's rooted in that guttural instinct to just bash anything that might be remotely harmful to your kids to a pulp before you even know what it is. What the movie is, what it's about, or how smart it'll make my kid after they watch it. Just as long as there's none of those, like, 4 or 5 things that I just get really uncomfortable around, it's fine. It's cool. It's whatever, yo.
G, good. PG, good. PG, good. PG-13. PG-13. Are there titties? No, good. R, good. R. R. R.
Now, to be perfectly fair, that stuff's definitely crucial when you're trying to teach your kid what and what not to do, how they should stay safe on a day-to-day basis, and if you're willing to go the extra step, why you maybe shouldn't treat other people like garbage. But sometimes the level of blind absolution I see when it comes to drawing your lines, what's okay and not okay in the media that your kid consumes, it just gets ridiculous after a while. To give you a little more context, I grew up in a house that also happened to be a daycare. I saw dozens of parents and the various ways they raised their kids. The kids ended up growing up to be relatively, if not super cool people. Like, any mistakes that were made along the way were marginal and not damaging enough to the point where they wouldn't be like a functioning human being by the time they grew up. It's fine. But, you know, having said all of that, one thing that has consistently bugged me as I've gotten older has been the arbitrary and sometimes just flat-out inconsistent lines that get drawn when it comes to watching movies. Young adult adaptations like Harry Potter and Hunger Games have all sorts of dark and scary subject matter, but hey, originally they were books, and me and my kid loved them. And I don't want him to be the only one at school who doesn't get to see the new movie. Can you imagine how much of a drag that would be? The kids at school would never let him live that down. A cinematic classic like Lawrence of Arabia, though? Well, the complexities of contemporary history and modern warfare are far too much for a young, growing mind to comprehend. War is no laughing matter, nor is it cool. Tough decisions have to be made and people lose their lives, and that's just too damn harrowing for any kid to understand. No, see, they're wearing helmets, they have no discernible personalities, they're clearly just there as husks to represent evil. It's a throwback to pulp adventure serials from the 40s, it's just fantasy, you know, kid stuff, in space, with spaceships and lasers. And lasers aren't real. Oh dear God. Obviously, this hypothetical person's a bit of an exaggeration, but can you at least see what I'm getting at here? The Dark Knight was apparently okay for a lot of our youngsters, despite having a psychotic clown with a smile of scars, a dude taking a pencil to the eye, a body bomb, and multiple hostage situations involving young innocent people, because it's Batman! Na-na-na-na-na-na-na Batman. 1960s, Adam West, synthesizers, cartoons, Super Friends, 1980s, Tim Burton, action figures, Hot Wheels, Legos! I was young once. Now, in all seriousness, despite everything I've said so far, I am more than willing to admit that parenting is just objectively a demanding and exhausting job. Like, I've subbed for daycare, I've babysat here and there, and, that was complicated and demanding in itself. So the idea of committing to something like that, like full-time, for 20 years straight, kind of freaking out just thinking about it, to be honest. Like, at the end of the day, your priorities as a parent are gonna depend on your generational values, as well as your personal upbringing, which, especially this day and age, could be like a myriad of things, and I acknowledge that. I respect that. I do. I really, really do. It's just that when it comes to this idea of bad words or questionable content, there comes a point where you just gotta stop lying to yourself, I mean, you sit there and act like this disposable, off-the-conveyor belt entertainment, which, by the way, is often made by people who don't care at all about the audience's intelligence, is completely harmless. Yet also say, through some of your ratings at least, that movies like Stand By Me, Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, The Breakfast Club, and Once are so volatile and toxic that I need to be 17 just to see them? Now, sure, it's perfectly fair to argue that not every parent is that literal with the rating system. There's definitely a lot of exceptions that are made depending on the kid and depending on the movie. That all being said though, for a lot of households, and it's also worth mentioning for a lot of faiths and denominations, those ratings are scripture that's followed to the letter. And those people are missing a lot of insightful, enriching stories because of it. Here are movies that show how a rough childhood can be overcome through friendship, that show how the optimistic acts that people put on are sometimes there to hide their deep-seated depressions, that show how teens in drastically different social situations might be more alike than they think, or that no amount of romance or artistic synergy can wipe away the mistakes that we ultimately have to make right. And then we have the King's Speech. You know what the funniest part in all of this is? If they were to make a Walmart version of this movie, where they just went in and dubbed it over with some nicer vocab and maybe even just removed those bad scenes altogether, leaving it at a PG for smoking or some shit. In a lot of ways, you would have pretty much the same movie. I mean, you could watch it with your young ones without having to worry about things getting awkward for a second or whatever it is you're afraid of. And by the end of it, I think everyone would pretty much receive the message loud and clear. The key thing for me, though, is the story would now take place in this alternate reality, this vacuum of a dimension that's devoid of harshness and cojones and linguistic color. Can you tell I had to write this shit out yet? So anyway, you have these characters who are, again, based on real people and have conflicts that are based in history and real-life psychological studies. So you have these characters, and you rob them. You rob them of their right to curse. You rob them of their right to express their feelings in a visceral, verbal, abstract way that otherwise isn't really possible. You rob them of their ability to just let everything go and just shout the most obscene concepts that are within their subconscious, thus relieving them of the stress and anxieties that come with life, which allows them, these characters, to go on and do what has to be done, whether it's just trying to overcome a personal obstacle or overcoming their own fear so that they can help other people who aren't as privileged or powerful as they are. Human shit. The stuff that makes these icons that move about on the screen more than that. The stuff that makes them people that we can relate to and empathize with and see ourselves within. The stuff that makes it that much more satisfying when they overcome those obstacles, those fears, the adversity. The stuff, that little extra kick that allows us to fully grasp what's happening in the story and have a catharsis that in turn makes us want to make better of ourselves. That's what's at stake here. But no. No. No, that's a load of hogwash, right? My kid can't watch that. No. They say fuck in it. They say fuck in that movie. My kid can't watch that, no. Mm-mm. No. Well, shit, dude. I mean, I say fuck. Yeah. That rustle your jimmies, that bug you? I know it does. I know that bugs some of you out there. I say fuck. Sorry. But, let's be honest. Alright? You're not off the hook either, are you? Moms, dads, uncles, aunties, grandmothers, grandfathers, Father Garfunkel, Mrs. Crabtree, Mr. O'Reilly.
Whatever it is, it's not right on the teleprompter. I don't know what that is. I can't read it. There's no words on it. All right, go. We'll do it live. Fuck it. Fucking thing sucks.
You know, every time I watch that guy, I just get the sense that he thinks the internet forgot. No. No, it's all in the past, though. were infallible. That was actually one of the few things that made me like that man a little bit more. Which is the point that I'm getting at here. You all say fuck.
Do you know the F word?
Fornication?
Oh, Bertie.
Fuck.
That teacher who calls you up while you're at work because your kid said fuck in the middle of class. Yeah, he said fuck that weekend, you know, when his team fumbled the fucking ball and lost the fucking game, thereby ruining their chances of getting into the fucking Super Bowl.
Fuck!
Anyone who's ever stubbed their toe, and you know, statistically speaking, that's a lot of fucking people, has either said or thought or come very, very, very fucking close to saying fuck.
Fuck! Fuck! Fucking fuck! Fuck!
Fucking Datsun, a fucking Toyota, a fucking Mustang, a fucking Buick, 4 fucking wheels and a seat. I want a fucking car right fucking now.
I don't give a fuck. I pay the motherfucking bills in this motherfucker. Kiss my ass if you don't like it.
Buggity, 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 fuck, fuck off.
Yes.
Balls, fucking
You see,
shit,
not a
shit,
hesitation.
fucking willy, shit and fuck and tits.
But hey, you know what? No, this is bigger than fuck. This is bigger than any single fucking word in the English dictionary that's considered not fucking okay to say, alright? Okay. At the end of the day, it all comes down to ideas. Impulses. Those two. Together at once. Things that can be challenged and talked about and, in some cases, corrected if it's putting other people's safety at risk. And at the end of the day, at the most basic human level, it comes down to asking yourself one simple question. If my kid sees this, or if my kid reads this, or if my kid hears this, what's gonna happen? Put it this way. It's not too different from telling your kid to settle the hell down when they're running around at church or the library or the mall because, you know, they're hyped up on caffeine and sugar and all they watch are Alvin and the Chipmunks and Transformers movies. But again, what's gonna happen? Well, assuming you're doing your job and telling them what should or shouldn't be done under whatever circumstances you happen to be under at that time, not a whole fucking lot. Or at least I don't think so. Like, I don't know. Just talk to your kid. Be willing to sit down and talk about these things with your kid. Says the 22-year-old faggot who doesn't have any kids of his own, therefore obviously doesn't have an emotional grip as to how frequent those questions could be asked and how not at all smart they can sometimes be. You know, just to stay fair, my personal bias aside, I still think that's a pretty valid argument to make. Be willing to sit down and analyze and deconstruct the things that happen in the media that we consume parallel to our kids. Like, be able to decipher which things would be okay under this situation or which wouldn't be okay under that situation, or if any of these things wouldn't be okay to replicate at all. Like, I don't know, holding aloft your mighty robot sword saying, "Oh, hell no," and then, like, slashing people in half and stuff. I don't know. This might just be a personal thing, but I just don't think that that's applicable to that many parts in your life, you know? But anyway, what was I talking about? Stay on target. Language. When it comes to these naughty words that you're never supposed to say, be willing to sit down and tell them, hey, this 4-letter word that is just a shorter version of a concept that, come to think of it, you're going to be learning in 5th grade in family life anyway, but regardless, is the word that we have deemed the one you're never supposed to say ever. If you do say it, just please don't say it at school where other kids will hear you and then say it around their parents because then I'll get in trouble. Or at the very least, don't say it around your teachers. Hell, son, all I'm getting at here is just don't say it in front of me. And personally, I really like that last one because no matter how good of a parent you are or claim to be, that's really the only time where you have 100% control over the situation. Because, all right, like, let's be honest. Anyone who's ever been a kid will tell you that it's stupid to, like, know that your kid knows this word that they either picked up from a movie or a piece of music or a family member or you goddamn hypocrite. Kidding. But only a little bit, though. It's silly to know that they know this word, to look them dead in the eye and say, don't ever say this ever. Because it's not gonna happen. They're gonna say it, and you telling them not to say it is probably just gonna give them more, like, subconscious incentive to be like, oh, well, F the police, Dad. Tupac. gosh. It might have been the whitest thing I've ever said. Ever. And ironically, it was related to what most people would call black music. Oh god, that was... I surprised myself with that one. But no, again, anyone who's ever been a kid knows that it's completely useless to tell someone to never say anything ever, because it doesn't work. And, you know, not to go on too big of a tangent here, but that rule pretty much applies like miles down the road when the parent and kid relationship is over with and it's just a bunch of full-grown adults doing full-grown adult things. And yet people still think that that's a thing that one can do. Say, you can't ever say this ever and expect that to do anything. I mean, hell, like, I guarantee you someone's gonna give me flack for just using the word faggot earlier. I totally did that. I said faggot, despite the fact that I targeted the word at myself and used it in a context that had nothing to do with whether or not, you know, your lover is the same sex or gender as... I don't hate the gays, all right? That's what I'm getting at here. I don't hate the gays, I don't hate the trans, I don't hate the whatever, what have you. There's definitely a video somewhere else on this channel that suggests that I, Dylan Cuesta, am on the right side of history. I just don't go for the whole lingual policing and all that, all right? Because it's infuriating to me for the very same reasons that, you know, caused me to make this whole fucking production for you tonight. I mean, you look at the MPAA, and you look at organizations like it, you draw all the similarities between the two and how effective they are in the end. This kind of mass restriction, just across the board, it's absurd. It's ridiculous to me. I mean, in this country alone, you have these interest groups, these activists, these politicians, these self-proclaimed patriots who all have these rules on what you can and can't say, thinking it's actually going to do anything. Like, they treat language, they treat these noises that we defecate out of our mouths like they're this toxic thing that we have to give the scarlet letter because it's going to corrupt somebody's innocence. Whose, I don't know. It depends on the word. It depends on the people it may or may not refer to. It depends on the event that it may or may not refer to. It depends on who's saying it sometimes. The rules are never the same for a single word. You just aren't. And I don't mean to go on this tangent, but it all stems from the same thing I'm talking about here. You act like these things are just gonna ruin the very fabric of society, and the hard reality of it all is that you could say each and every one of these words in a row, in one sitting, and it wouldn't do a goddamn thing. Oh, anyway, moral of all of this. What was I getting at? Oh, like, I don't know. Watch King's Speech. All right, it's, like, everything else aside, it's a great movie with a great message, and if you're willing to get past the British accents and the dry sense of humor that occasionally pops up, it's just, it's good. You and the whole family, I guarantee it, will get something out of this movie if you give it a chance. All I could ever ask of you is to watch it despite this rated R for some language bullshit. Well, that's my good deed for the day. Another great movie pulled out from under the chariot of injustice. I'm losing my mind right now. I should probably stop. Anyway, I've got to go get ready for something that I just thought of. See ya. Thanks for watching. My production space has been invaded. Oh, okay. by a Spreeblebub. Say hi, Spreeblebub. Ow. Okay. Okay. Dumbass.